Well, certainly after this movie, I could fully say that my life is definitely not worth living if I'm living with these people. Life is a movie by that stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds, and a bunch of other different people on the International Space Station as they play astronauts who are kind of these sort of biologists, if you will, of the outer space. And this movie is a mess. Everything's a mess in this film. Not just from a story perspective, but from everything. The first problem with this movie is that the trailer gives away the first 20 minutes or so of the film. There's nothing new. There's really nothing new. Like the entire trailer is essentially the first 10 or 20 minutes of the film, which is kind of a ruiner for me. The second problem with this film really is the characters. The characters in this film are very stock, very bland, not interesting, and you don't care for them at all in this entire film. There's a lot of reviewers who seem to think that by not having any sort of characterization and just making you laugh for a couple seconds just means that you can make them sort of relatable. They're not good characters. They're acted well, I could give you that with Ryan Reynolds and Jake Gyllenhaal, but there's no reason to really care for the characters other than they're in space and there's nothing there. And yes, there is this sort of element of isolation. They're in space, they can't contact anyone because their communications are down, and that's pretty much a no-brainer of like, oh yeah, well, they're mostly gonna die. But what's the story about? So, yeah, so these, as I said before, there's some biologists who are on the International Space Station who are receiving a pod from Mars. Now, they had been studying Mars and its landscapes for who knows how long, because the movie doesn't tell you shit. And they essentially get this pod, get the samples out of the ground, and essentially they find these little protozoas in the soil. And they soon, like, cultivate it, bring it back to life. There's, like, this reanimator joke in there, which is fairly dumb. Like, they point it out, and it's an obvious point out, and they follow it up with some dumb joke about Ryan Reynolds being a nerd. It's really dumb. I know I'm getting into some spoilers, but I think it's for the best because, there's no point in this movie where you would say, yeah, I want these characters to survive. But again, like, as soon as they cultivate it, they make it grow, something bad happens, and it breaks quarantine, and it's up to the crewmates of the entire International Space Station to survive against this sort of parasitic type of beast. Well, it's not really parasitic, but he's just kind of an asshole. This movie makes no fucking sense whatsoever. Like, from the creature standpoint, especially, like, this movie is... I'll start off with this. This movie is an Alien ripoff. Don't go into this movie thinking it's anything different. It is not. Like, it is the most bland, repetitive, boring version. It's like the poor man's version of Alien in a nutshell. But what I will say is that in certain scenes, there was this sort of tension that was building because of the ability of the creature. But the creature itself makes no sense. I'll tell you why. Here's this thing. So, you know how in the original Alien, you have the facehugger, right? Fairly simple. Implants eggs, alien pops out, there's your alien. Well, in this one, this alien grows up from this protozoa, becomes this sort of fucking starfish thing, kills one person by going down this guy's throat and getting all these organs and whatnot, and then it becomes this sort of squid, or not squid, but this sort of octopus, which is bullshit, and then he kills another person, gets all of his blood and his energy or whatnot. They don't really explain anything about this creature, and you know, he becomes this sort of vampiric squid thing. Like, I don't understand what the hell this thing was. I never understood it. I didn't understand its origin. There was nothing new about it. Like, it was random for random's sake, and it was just like, It's like, you know, they had all these different animators there, they had all these concept artists there, and the producers of this film were like, yeah, I'll go for this version and this version in this movie. We could just, like, put one after the other and make the creature have no sense at all. That's essentially the point of the creature, is that there's no sense to it. Aside from that, the pacing here at times can be very, very slow. Well, not really very slow, just like kind of slow enough. But everything from everything is a bit practical. I feel like everything is a bit practical, a little bit more practical than Alien, because in Alien, you know, you have like gravity boosts, you have all this stuff, you have an actual steady gravity inside of the station. But in this one, it's realistic because they're in the International Space Station, and that's it. Like, the only thing practical about it is that they're inside of an International Space Station, and that's it. As far as the characters go, they're all dumb. And, like, it's basically the basic horror movie tropes that we've seen tons and tons of times over and over and over. And it gets old. Like, in the first, like, as soon as the alien gets out, 2 people die. 2 people die in the first, like, when he breaks out of quarantine. 2 people die out of this 6-person team, and then over time they all die. Every single one of them dies. And it's, oh my god. The ending is probably the best thing, I would say, because it is a sort of bait and switch. But if you know anything about modern horror, is that they try to put in this twist that sometimes doesn't pay off. This one kind of feels like a good payoff because it is a true bad ending, and it kind of reminded me of Cabin in the Woods, how the entire world was like kind of fucked up at the end. This ending had that sort of same feel, and I feel this sort of direction was kind of where maybe Alien 3 would have done. You know, because there was this, you know, or not Alien 3, Alien Resurrection. There was an original ending for Alien Resurrection where Neo Ripley, the alien Ripley, they get down to Earth, but they find out that Earth was already long destroyed. Maybe Life is a somewhat pseudo prequel to Alien Resurrection? I have no clue here. But Life is very boring. It's very tedious. It is tense at times. It is very beautiful to look at, though. It's very beautiful. Like, everything from the outside, you know, the creature looks kind of nice. But the Earth is probably, like, the best thing ever, like, to look at. Like, the visual style of it is really good. But, like, everything else is pretty bad. Like, you have some pretty bad dialogue. You have characters that are very expendable. You have a creature that doesn't make any sense, and there's no sort of insight. And, you know, there's the editing's pretty good. I'll give it that. But there's just 3 main problems with this entire film. That's the characters, the creature, and the story. Everything about this is a poor man's version of Alien. And that's what I got going in. The ending was kind of a nice throwaway ending, but pretty much there's no reason to go see this movie. There's almost no reason. I liked the ending, it's just everything else was just really bad. But yeah, don't waste your money on this one. I don't think it's that good, but I'm going to give it a score anyway. I'm going to give Life, the movie, a 6 out of 10. It breaks my heart this way, because I really do like horror movies set in space, but it just turned out to just be another generic, bland, uninteresting alien film that is a knockoff of the 1979 Alien without any of the heart or substance, and it's terrible. It's a terrible film. Don't waste your money on it. Save it for another movie. Maybe Ghost in the Shell next week, or something else. Until next time, I'll see you behind the camera. Peace.